Joining us right now, a guy who knows, this guy knows more than me about, just about everything, including the phenomenal first name he and I share. Unfortunately, he is a Miami Hurricane fan, but we don't hold that against him. He is the guru of fantasy sports for CBS Sports, and we will, at some point during this conversation, let you know where you can hear from him, his colleagues, hear, read, watch, and help your fantasy football team be a winner. Joining us each Friday this year, once again, as he has for years, our dear friend, David Richard. Good morning, Dave.
Dave, good morning to you. And the name you were looking for is Roderick Johnson.
Thank you.
That is the second-string left tackle for the Houston Texans. He was the starter until they traded for Laramie Tunsil.
You sent me an instant message before you came on because you're traveling, telling me to call a different phone number, and you wrote, "Call me Sel." And I was just wondering, was that a typo, or were you doing some sort of fun accent there? Are you a pirate? Instead, you didn't say "call my cell." I didn't know if you were trying to be funny or not.
No, that was a legitimate typo. Although, if you want me to try and do a pirate voice for the remainder of this interview,
I'm good.
I'm down. I'm down. We can give it a shot. The Fantasy Football Pirate, Dave Richard.
There's your new podcast, Dave Richard.
Yeah, this is going to go well.
All right. So
I started David Montgomery. Arr.
You said something I saw, and this is one of the things I love about you. I think I remember it. Was it 2 years ago? I want to say you started out. I think the first couple games, you were the guys you were plugging in. We've all gone through it. The guys that you were plugging in just weren't doing it. You said to me, I think on the air, it was one of your worst starts as a fantasy football guy. It was really pissing you off. And what I love about you is you were open about it. You were public about it. That I don't trust people that don't make mistakes. I don't trust people that those are the guys that you hear on those tout shows that have picked 19 winners in a row and blah, blah, blah. You're always very upfront with any errors you make. And obviously you have far, far, far more successes than errors. And I loved what you said. I think it was about Tony Pollard. Somebody asked you, "Hey, what do I do with Tony Pollard?" You said to pick him up, and you said, I loved your answer. You said, "We gambled and we lost. Maybe somebody with Zeke will handcuff Pollard and give you a low round something for him." But Dave, I would still maintain that was a gamble you had to take if you were a fantasy guy.
Because we didn't know what the situation was with Ezekiel Elliott and the Cowboys. And we thought that there was a pretty good chance that he would miss week 1.
Yep.
If we had every little bit of inside information, we probably, or at least I'll speak for myself, if I had every little bit of inside information on every player in football, I wouldn't be doing fantasy football. I would be probably lounging in Las Vegas right now, getting ready to place some wagers on the games, or at least, be on a cell phone somewhere in a state where sports betting is legal. Look, I think it was smart to protect yourself, and it was a must if you took Ezekiel Elliott in round 1.
Yep.
And I never really, for maybe about 4 or 5 days, I strayed off of Zeke in round 1. But for the most part, all offseason and most of training camp, I was on board with Zeke as a first-round pick because the potential of him being a 2,000 total yard guy, you couldn't ignore that. You can't say that about Melvin Gordon, which is why his situation was different. And additionally, you knew that Melvin Gordon, if you wanted to go with another guy on his same team, there were 2. There's Austin Eckler and there's Justin Jackson. So that's a lot of work, and that's a lot of draft capital to spend to lock up that backfield. The Cowboys' backfield was much easier to lock up. Getting Pollard in round 8. By the way, David, when's the last time you won a league because of a pick you made in round 8? Probably been a long time.
Yep.
You win leagues because the guys that you pick up off waivers, because of the studs that you take in rounds 1 through 3, those are the reasons why you win in fantasy, not because of what happens in round 8. Basically, the way I think about my fantasy draft, and this is bad timing because now we literally have 365 days before we have a fantasy football draft. Your picks, round 7 and on, should all be shooting for upside, trying to find diamonds in the rough, looking for breakouts, looking for sleepers, not taking any safe plays, the occasional handcuff, and you got to pick a kicker and a DST. That's really the nature of what fantasy should be with most of those picks, round 7 and on.
Dave, I took Damian Williams in the first round. Is the Chiefs picking up Shady McCoy going to kill me? Did I make a mistake?
You didn't take him in the first round.
Oh, I took him in the first round.
Was it a 22-team league?
16.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, is that any better, Dave?
I mean, maybe if you have to start 3 running, I don't know if I can justify taking him even in a 16-team league. There were better options for you to take there. Look, I think everybody that's got Damian Williams is having a heart attack because LaShawn McCoy's there. But here's a reality check for you. LaShawn McCoy is 31 years old. He's been a declining player each of the last 3 seasons. He's ranked among the least elusive running backs in fantasy in the NFL by Pro Football Focus. I don't think by, riding into Kansas City on a white horse, he's suddenly going to become the superstar that he once was. He's another guy. Like if I was going to take a handcuff for Damian Williams, round 8 would have been the time to go and get LaShawn McCoy. And would I trade something for McCoy if I had Damian Williams? I would probably trade something, but it wouldn't be very much. Damian Williams has done nothing to lose that top job in Kansas City. If that changes, then of course, you're going to see LaShawn McCoy play more. But for now, I think you'll be surprised by how little LaShawn McCoy plays. And you'll see how successful Damian Williams can be, because against Jacksonville, they're going to have to throw. And they actually ran the ball pretty well against the Jaguars last year. So I'm not convinced this is a horrible matchup for Damian Williams. I've got him as a number 2 running back this week, and I would assume I'm going to have him as a number 2 running back for the rest of the year.
CBS Sports Dave Richard with us. Dave, I'm going to try to make a case to you, and then, of course, you're going to shoot it down. It has nothing to do with the fact that you just said some things about Austin Eckler that worry me, and it has nothing to do with the fact that I took Austin Eckler in every single fantasy draft I had. Austin Eckler's been in the league 2 years. He's played all but 2 games. His rushing averages have been 5.5 and 5.2 last year. Last year, he had 404 yards receiving on 40 receptions. Last year, he had 554 yards with a 5.2 average and 6 combined touchdowns. Incredibly efficient, and that's with Melvin Gordon on the roster. So why am I hearing about Justin Jackson taking carries from Eckler and that they might suffer? Why am I not hearing that Eckler's going to come in and go for 1,200 yards and another 500 receiving and have 16 touchdowns?
Well, I think that's a possibility even if he's sharing with Justin Jackson, but I would put that very much toward the tail end of high-end possibilities. Okay. If you're picturing, a scale, it's, all the way at the end, like I said. Yeah. The Chargers last year consistently had their second running back get 10 touches per game, right in that range. And it didn't matter whether it was Melvin Gordon as the first back, Eckler was the first back, or even in one game where Justin Jackson was the first man up. 10 touches went to the second guy. The rest went to the first guy. And I think if we're working under that assumption to begin the year, you're going to see Austin Eckler have a chance to get some nice numbers. In the matchup against Indianapolis, I think it's okay. I don't think it's great. I don't think it's terrible. And you're going to see him certainly do more in the passing game, but I am concerned about his role at the goal line. I think that's going to be better for Justin Jackson, and the Chargers can mix and match their running backs like that.
Dave Richard with us. All right, so what do we do with you've got people out there that took Melvin Gordon and two of the there's so many different weird running back situations, whether it's the one down in Houston, the one you just talked about with Shady McCoy in there, Phillip Lindsay in Denver along with Royce Freeman. But what do people do with Melvin Gordon? And also as a follow-up, Kareem Hunt. Nick Chubb's the guy obviously in Cleveland, but it's 8 games for Kareem Hunt, you're assuming. Is he worth a low-round flyer?
No, I don't think he is, unless you have Chubb. I don't think Kareem Hunt is the same running back talent that he was in Kansas City, and I don't think he's going to get the same type of opportunity with Cleveland this year that he's had in the past. So I think when people drafted Kareem Hunt, they did it with a back half of the draft round pick. Hopefully it was closer to like one of your last 3 picks on Hunt. And you're probably going to end up cutting him because he's a guaranteed 0 for the first 9 weeks of the fantasy season, and eventually someone's going to come off the waiver wire that you're going to like better, and he'll probably end up on everybody's roster who has Nick Chubb as a starter. Now, Melvin Gordon. The first thing you're going to do if you have Melvin Gordon on your fantasy team is find the closest mirror, look into it, and say, why did I draft Melvin Gordon? Maybe you go on a little walk where you self-reflect on your life a little and wonder why you're making decisions that aren't so good. I saw Melvin Gordon go in round 3, round 4. These are valuable draft picks. I don't think the only team that I've got Melvin Gordon on, Dave, and this is the God's honest truth, it's a draft I did in like mid-July. That's the only one because I figured Melvin Gordon would get it worked out or he'd just show up. Well, it didn't happen. But I did get Justin Jackson on that team. And so if you've got Melvin Gordon and you're wondering what to do with your life, probably start by seeing what it'll take to get Justin Jackson off of somebody else's roster. That way you've got one Chargers running back every week, rain or shine, regardless of Melvin Gordon, who could change his mind by Saturday.
Sure.
Literally, Saturday night, he can stroll into the Chargers facility and say, all right, I'm here, I'm reporting. And he gets paid for 16 games on the last year of his deal. He could do that, or he could follow through with the holdout, and that sounds like what's happening. I have a hard time believing people are going to get a great value out of Melvin Gordon. If he's on your team, you're just going to have to sit there and stare at him until he decides to come back.
Dave Richards from CBS Sports joining us. Dave, I mean, if you have Ezekiel Elliott, obviously you're starting him. Is Pollard a good look, though, as a flex option, at least in week one, with Zeke probably being limited in touches?
I'm not buying that Zeke is going to be limited in touches. How many times have we heard about coaches say, well, we've got to keep this guy on a snap count or a pitch count or whatever they say. And then the game's going on. It might be a competitive game. Of course they're going to use Ezekiel Elliott if he's playing well and he looks good, and all reports out of Dallas and what the coaches are saying is that he looks fine. He looks like his normal old self. I don't buy it. I think Ezekiel Elliott has a great game. If the Cowboys are starting him, everybody that's got him in fantasy should start him, and Tony Pollard should be on the bench. There's no good reason to go with Tony Pollard this week.
All right, so here's the big question. Antonio Brown out Monday. We can all but guarantee that. Obviously, if you have Antonio Brown, that changes up your lineup. But does that make anybody on the Raiders in that receiving core stand out more than they already did to you, or do you think it's still too low to take a flyer on and put him in your starting lineup?
No, there are two guys that are worth a flyer, and the one that I would look for first is the guy who's available in more leagues, and that's Darren Waller, and it's a tight end that I've been very excited about.
He's in your bio on Twitter. You're all over this guy.
Yeah, and before Hard Knocks too, Dave, this was a late round pick that I liked, and I'm always looking for those sleepers.
Yes.
And trying to find guys who you can pick up on draft day or off the waiver wire before the rest of the world knows who they are.
Dave, I'm sorry, but I have a very important question because you're about to talk about Waller. This is a question you're not going to get on any other radio show, and this goes to the history you and I have. And I want you to think about this, is Darren Waller our new Alf Morris?
Every year I'm looking for that Alf Morris guy.
Me too.
And I've never had one quite as good as Alfred Morris.
Me neither.
And maybe one day I'll spill the beans on what happened with Alfred Morris and how I knew that happened. It's a pretty good story. But look, I got some info on Waller on top of everything else, and I know that he's going to be good. And with no Antonio Brown there, those targets are going to go around. And you think about Derek Carr. Okay, just picture this in your mind's eye. You've got Tyrell Williams streaming down one side of the field. You've got, there's no Antonio Brown anymore, so it's J.J. Nelson streaming down the other side. Derek Carr's got a clean pocket. He looks left, he looks right, and he checks it down over the middle.
Yeah.
That's what he does, right? That's Derek Carr in a nutshell.
Yeah.
But Darren Waller, he's 6'6", he's got 4.4 speed. He's going to be a tough matchup for everybody that the Raiders play against. And now he's going to get more targets because Antonio Brown is going to be there for at least the first game of the year and maybe the 15 to follow. So that's why I'm going after him. Plus, it's a premium position, Dave. Do you know how annoying it is to stream tight ends and find a guy each week that you cross your fingers and you hope that they score a touchdown? Finally, here's a tight end. He reminds me a little bit of Evan Ingram because he's more receiver than tight end, but he's a pretty good blocker too, which gives him more playing time. He could get 3, 4, 5 catches per week, have a decent shot at scoring because he's going to be a red zone option for the Raiders. I'm going to give him a couple of weeks on all of my rosters, and I've got him on all of my rosters. I'm excited about him. And we should also mention Tyrell Williams. That makes sense because he would see more targets too with Antonio Brown out on the field. And he, once upon a time, with the Chargers, I was going to say in San Diego because it did happen in San Diego, Keenan Allen got hurt, missed 15 and a half games.
Yeah.
Tyrell Williams stepped in, had over 1,000 yards, had 7 touchdowns. He's done this before where he's filled in, and he's been okay. But I just don't love the fit of him with Derek Carr quarterback. I'd rather it be Phillip Rivers if I'm being completely honest.
It's like an extremely fast car with the alignment just a little bit off. That's what Odell Beckham Jr. is saying about the hip that he says continues to bother him. If you're an OBJ owner, do you perhaps look to move him early? Or B, if you're somebody that wants to take a flyer, is this where maybe you try to sneak in and get some value on him?
You could. I would try and wait a game to see the value on him, because if he runs like he's got a hitch in his step and he's not his normal self, I'm not going to know when that changes. It could be 2 weeks. It could be all season. And you never like it when you hear a player make excuses about their health before the season starts.
Yeah.
You remember Doug Baldwin last year, where he came out and he said, "I'm 85% of where I was."
Mm-hmm.
That's almost like it's almost like he took out money and bought a billboard to put in every major city saying, "Don't draft me in fantasy. I'm not myself." And I'm a little worried that might be the case with Odell now. But we all drafted him. I've got a team with Odell Beckham and Antonio Brown on it, okay? I'm not loving life at this point in time. But I'm going to give Odell a week. I want to see what he looks like at least, and I'm not going to sell low on him if he looks terrible in week one. But if he, let's just say he has 70 yards and a touchdown, but he doesn't look great, maybe at that point you can try and sell high and get a player that you might have gotten in round one who disappointed. James Conner goes out and he has a so-so game against the Patriots. You can trade Odell for James Conner, and then maybe you're hoodwinking the guy and you're getting Conner on your squad. It could be something like that. But let's just wait and see. There's no reason to panic, because you're not going to get much. You're definitely not going to get much in trade for somebody like Antonio Brown right now, and you're not going to get what you would want in trade for Odell Beckham right now.
Dave, I want to go back to the Raiders real quick. They got a rookie running back in Josh Jacobs. What is his ceiling, you think, this year as far as fantasy value goes?
Ceiling is a top 12 fantasy running back with 1,500 yards and 10 touchdowns. Now, the floor, for every running back, the floor is 0 because they can get hurt. That's the position that's tough. But we've seen John Gruden ride rookie running backs before. I'm not going to do another story time, but Cadillac Williams was that guy back in Tampa back in the day, and he knew it was coming even before he was drafted by Tampa Bay. I think that Josh Jacobs is going to get a lot of work. There were 10 games last year where either Marshawn or Doug Martin had 15-plus touches in that offense. I think that's going to be the minimum for Josh Jacobs unless the Raiders get completely blown out. I don't like that he would play without Antonio Brown. I think Brown's part of the reason why Jacobs is an alluring fantasy running back. But even if he's not there, Jacobs could pick up some work as a pass catcher. And I think he's going to see a lot of playing time. And I think the Raiders are real excited to get him going. So for now, he's a number 2 running back, but his upside, easily top 12.
Dave, just real quick, because we don't want to disappoint the fans who've been writing in and calling in, Deshaun Watson or Lamar Jackson this weekend?
I'm going to go with Watson. He's my number 1 quarterback this week. I think he just plays on fire and comes up with huge numbers against the Saints.
Robbie Anderson or Cortland Sutton at wide receiver?
I'm going to go with Anderson. I know he's not at 100%, but I like the rapport he's got with Sam Darnold, and we've seen him light up Buffalo before. I think he can do it again.
Terrell Williams, you just spoke about him. Cooper Kupp or Deshaun Jackson, got to pick one.
I would go with Kupp. Love the matchup for him in the slot against Carolina, and I think the Rams could throw quite a bit more than we're expecting now. Remember, Todd Gurley with the knee, maybe they don't ride him so much as a traditional running back, and they throw a little bit more. Kupp is a good alternative to any run game, or the slot receiver is a good alternative to any run game, and Kupp is also a great red zone threat.
All right, Novell's been holding, and I want to get to him for you. Novell, real quick, we don't have a lot of time. You're on with Dave Richard of CBS Sports. Go ahead with your question.
Thank you for my call. I got 2 short questions. I need, in the standard league, either Kirk Cousins or Matthew Stafford or Carson Wentz or Drew Brees.
Okay.
I'm going to go with Wentz over Brees, but that one's close. I'm going to go with Stafford over Cousins because I think Stafford has a little more upside against that Arizona defense. And Dave, that defense did not look good during the preseason. Yeah. They're not going to have Patrick Peterson. He's their best player for the first 6 games. Stafford could have himself a nice game.
Where can everybody hear, watch, and see and read and all other forms of consumption, you and your friends at CBS Sports?
Well, if you came to my house and I opened a window, you'd definitely be able to hear, and I'd probably print something out and hand it to you. But other than that, CBSSports.com is the place to be. I've got my cheat sheets, non-PPR and full PPR available. And you know what? I haven't tweeted them out yet, so I'm going to do that as soon as we're done talking, Dave. And I also have the trade chart, which helps people make deals in case you're getting antsy before week 1. That can help you out. And let's see, in about an hour from now, I'll be live on CBSSports.com along with the rest of our fantasy crew breaking down DFS for week 1. It's here. the 100th season of the NFL, Dave. Do you think our forefathers would have loved DFS 100 years ago? I say yes. I think they would have loved daily fantasy back then, and I know everybody loves it now. You will get a full slate of advice on it. Just go to CBSSports.com in 1 hour.
Our forefathers, our five fathers, our six fathers, I think they all would have loved fantasy football, would have loved to see what George Washington did with that defense in wintertime. Buddy, appreciate you as always, and we will talk to you each and every Friday.
Yar, good luck in your league, matey.
That's Dave Richard.
The Drive.